how do you pick a gym that really suits what you're going for? Because I think a lot of people, they get into martial arts and they're like, I want to do self-defense.
Yeah. Then
And
the
that
bug hits them.
and that's a really big, broad topic. You could talk about firearms, knife training. You could talk about vehicular problems,
Yeah.
like home defense.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly broad range and skill set. So where do you see like the intersection of competitive styles of martial arts with self-defense?
Um, man, I okay, so I started off doing self-defense, like
Yeah.
martial arts for self-defense at 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I did it because my dad was tired of me being a pain in the butt in the house and I was being like undisciplined, not doing well in school. And he just put me in martial arts because he thought discipline,
Yeah.
right? I need to help my kid. Greatest thing he ever did for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, and as time went on, the intersection for me, right? Hopping into the like competition side of things was I felt like I kind of knew everything in the self-defense art that I was training,
Yeah.
right? So I felt like I had peaked, and there wasn't anything else other than competing that I hadn't done.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so why don't I just give this a try? Because I didn't want to compete. Like I just wanted to train self-defense, teach it and this, that, and the other. But there was an element missing that I felt like that I really needed to add to my, I guess, repertoire to say at least I did it one time.
Yeah.
Right. So I did it one time, and I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
I fell in love with like the competition side of things and how much it was like just a different beast.
Yeah.
Completely.
It is.
But we talk about like the intersection, right?
Yeah.
How can a competition style fighter excel in a self-defense scenario and vice versa,
Yeah.
right? So competition style fighter can excel pretty well in a self-defense scenario because if you think about it, a competitor has the mentality of controlling the ring or controlling the situation, right? So there's this level also of like stress that they don't worry about because you've been in the ring before, which is a very like stressful and chaotic environment, right?
Yeah.
And we've heard this before, like, the one that's relaxed and chill in a stressful and chaotic environment is typically the one that kind of wins that scenario, right? Rises above.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like in the self-defense world, right? Unless you have physically trained to get beat up, right? In a self-defense scenario, like you don't know what that feels like until you get there.
Well, what we're talking about right now is we're talking about the pressure.
Yeah.
Fighters have been pressure tested, much more than some purely self-defense styles would go.
Yeah.
A lot of people who do fights, it is full contact.
Yeah.
Like you're going until someone either gets knocked out or until the rounds end.
Yeah.
And then a winner's declared.
Mhm.
You understand the adrenaline dump that happens and what happens in fight or flight situations. And I think that's a really positive experience because oftentimes, and I'll see this because I train Krav Maga, which is primarily a self-defense. And I think that one of the weaknesses that I've seen with Krav Maga is a lack of that, a lack of pressure testing. And what I mean by a lack of pressure testing is even if you're training hard, you're training with your friends at a high level, you know everybody in the class. Yeah. There isn't that anxiousness of wanting to do well anymore because you're kind of complacent inside of your environment. Mm-hmm. And because there's no competitions, it's like, so what am I going to do? There's no self-defense competitions. So it's like, how do I test my skills against other people in other gyms? You really don't.
You just go out and pick fights.
Yeah, go to bars. Don't do that, by the way. That's a good way to get killed and arrested now. But we'll talk about that stuff later. But no, it's really hard to find new ways to pressure test. That's why I push a lot of like my advanced ranking students. You either go to seminars with guys who allow more full force kind of pressure testing stuff, or you do jiu-jitsu competitions.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big proponent of that. It's not as damaging for like older guys or stuff like that to hop in.
But it's a real good feel for how
You feel real hardcore resistance,
Yeah.
like, and you get nervous
Yeah.
because you're going out there and you're trying to compete in front of hundreds of people that now they're all not watching you, but you think they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so when you go out there,
me.
yeah, when you go out there, the adrenaline hits and you could do a 5-minute roll in your gym and then you go out there and try to compete
Completely different.
and you're like gassed out at 2.5 minutes. Your
Yeah.
forearms are jello and it's a completely new world.
Yeah,
You're
and
like,
that's like one of the like big things with like the competition circuit, and like I would when I used to teach guys to compete, I would encourage them to go out and spar at other schools.
Yeah.
Like because you're consistently sparring with the same people every night in our gym.
Yeah.
Right. There's not a lot of I mean, there's value there, but not as much as it would be if you were going to another school, and these guys don't know you.
Yeah.
They're gonna give it to you, right? They're gonna give you that real experience that you need. And I feel like another like kind of sidetrack a little bit. Another element that competition doesn't have that self defense does is you got to think in like a competition circuit or fight or whatever the case may be. There's rules.
Yeah.
Right. There's things that you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
Right. So the argument there is like, which one?
Yeah, well, I would argue that self-defense has a ton of rules. They're always enforced by lawyers and suits afterwards.
Afterwards.
So,
Not in the moment though.
but your actions in the moment can really harm you later on down the road if you're not careful. So it's really interesting because people are like, well, there's no rules in a street fight. I'm like, there actually are. It's called Virginia State self-defense law.
Yeah.
And it's not enforced in the moment. No one's coming to pull you off if you don't abide by those. But the consequences can be so much more costly that you wish that you would have just taken a punch to the nose.
Yeah.
And just
it wouldn't have been that bad.
And you know, and if that's all it was, and this was just minor assault, and you just took a punch and you're like, oh, you know, instead of now you beat this dude up and elbowed him and cracked his skull and broke his orbital bone, and now he's suing you for loss of wages for you know, and it's like man, and it's like this compounded super quick from like so that's something funny that I always flip on people when they always say, oh, there's no rules in a street fight. I'm like, what do you think Virginia self-defense law is all about? And actually, range sports are much more permissive of what you can do to another human being inside of a ring than self-defense law is. It's like you elbow someone, that's grievous bodily harm.
You elbow somebody in the ring, good job.
Good job, man. On the street,
like extra money for that.
Yeah, exactly. Highlight of the night, you know. And then you turn it around, you do that stuff outside, and it's like that's like grievous bodily harm.
Yeah.
And that's this just below like manslaughter and you know all that other stuff. And it's like, wow. And I'll tell that to people. Yeah. If you're on the wrong side of it. So it's really interesting when you look at like the blind spots of each one. I would say that kind of the blind spots when you're looking for like a self-defense gym, to kind of differentiate between a self-defense gym and a sport fighting gym, what I tell people to look at is, do they talk about legality in class? Are they concerned with disengagement? And do they practice consistently with the presence of weapons? And if those three criteria are not met, you're not training in a self-defense oriented gym. You're training in a ring fighting gym, which can, or a competitive style gym, which can have large ramifications towards self-defense, but also quite a number of blind spots too. Like you're building in training habits that are very applicable in a match or a competition, but might get you in trouble or leave you with a blind spot if you're training, you know, if like you're doing more self-defense style stuff and you're actually training for real life application, like on the street, you know. So, and I hate to say street fighting, I'm talking about counter assault training, because you shouldn't engage in street fighting, but it's, to me, it's a great way to get shot. So everybody's got a gun. They do. Yeah, I know of two bar fights in the area. that ended. One of them was guy was in mount, finished ground and pounding the dude. One walked off. Guy pulled his gun and shot him 7 times in the back as he walked away.
Oof.
Fucking tragic. It was all over some girl at a bar. Like these guys have been making passes at each other for months, and they just finally came to blows over it. And yeah, the guy didn't like losing like that. And he definitely was convicted, I think, of murder. But because the fight had ended, clear, distinct break, guy had gotten off of him, walked away.
There was some what's the word? What's the term? Malicious intent there.
Yep. Sure. And just pulled the gun and popped him. And then there was another one at the Eagle's Nest. 2 guys got into it in like the parking lot. Fist fight, broke it up, and then the guy tried to shoot him as he walked away. Missed though, but yeah. So yeah.
You can't be too careful nowadays, man.
No, it's and like how it's not like back in the day. People are really lawsuit happy.
Oh yeah.
And you can't just duke it out and and then high five afterwards.
Yeah, you breathe on somebody the wrong way now. It's just you can get a lawsuit landed on you.
Yep. Yeah.